Tinubu, you have been a bad boy.
Feel like you're spending your money, your hard-earned money. If you make your money, you will not budget 260 million for streetlights. People are legit suffering.
Fuel subsidy is gone. That statement had no business in the speech of any president.
I had this at the Lekki toll gate in 2020. And it was so crazy, a few days later, seeing people using this Nigerian flag to wrap dead bodies. That shit hit me to the core. Omo, it do me.
We brought 10 Nigerians into the studio today to express their pain and give an advice to the Nigerian government.
Dear 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 Nigerian government.
My name is Asadu Emmanuel.
My name is Deshi.
My name is Omotola Olude Moli.
My name is Wisdom Obasibo.
My name is Taiwo Yusuf.
My name is Fatihah Ainde. I am a Nigerian
and this is my advice
to you.
Hopefully, their collective voices would land on the right ears.
Inflation is actually a general problem, but Nigeria does not know how to manage inflation. My mentor would say, whenever you get the leadership right, everything else follows. And that's where we're having issues. If we have the perfect leader who knows how to manage inflation, it shouldn't have been a problem.
As a student on campus, last year, I think I spent like 1,000 naira on transport per week. But right now, I have to spend at least 3,000 naira. Just merely eating a day, 5,000 is barely enough now. Let's look at parents, let's look at the single mothers, let's look at the single fathers who have mediocre jobs. How are they surviving right now in Nigeria?
A more personal way to look at this is the fact that the cost of medication for a family member has basically doubled in the past year alone. And while we can afford it, we thank God, he gives an understanding that it must be horrible for a lot of people.
Lára gàrí nísìn ìkẹta gàrí tá a fẹ́ rà nísìn jákàndé ẹ máa ní ká mú 4-5 fún wa wọ́n tó lọ́mọ márùn-ún lé báwo ti fẹ́ bọ́ wọn ọmọ mi ra alájẹkù ni ẹ lè tẹ̀ bá nísìn ó lè ní kò yóò.
We can say there is an excuse for the products that are being imported, but what of Nigerian-made products? Basic Nigerians can't afford basic needs, and Nigerian governments can actually look into that.
What I'm going to do, food-wise, get back to agriculture. Reach out to these farmers. We have large-scale farmers, we have small-scale farmers. If they need anything from your end as a ministry, it is very important for you to let me know so that I include in the budget of the upcoming year. Now they have easier access to amenities, fertilizers, even land. These are things coupled together that actually causes inflation when it comes to food.
Tinubu ní ti tẹ̀ lọ́wọ́, but àwọn tó dídì wà lábẹ́lẹ̀ gan-an tó ń control Nàìjíríà. Àwọn ọ̀gọ́lá ní ṣù lálẹ́jọ́ bá wí.
Ẹ tó fẹ́ tún Nàìjíríà ṣe kò hàn TV o, a sì máa jagun lọ ni. Ìjọba olè ní nǹkan kan ṣe torí ìjọba náà kówó sápò ni. Ó lè ní.
And then what the government can do immediately, I'm going to be very honest with you, nothing. Immediately, nothing. Economic problems take time, they take a few years to materialize. But something they can start doing that would really help, one is security. And I don't mean security for everyone, I mean security for those that farm, those that produce food.
Nigeria is a country that imports way more than it exports. Can we solve that? Can we look at our manufacturing industries? We have the largest cassava farming industry in Nigeria, yet we barely get any of our GDP from that sector.
I think there is a regulatory body for the prices of things, and I feel like they don't do shit.
Ìjọba gan ṣe tiẹ̀ sápá ara ẹni o, ẹni tó bá ti tún lẹ̀ sí ló máa rí tẹ̀yàn ro. Ìjọba òṣèlú mẹ́nìkan wá nu ẹ̀rá àta, ṣèbí gbogbo ọmọ ẹ̀ ló fi sílẹ̀, ọmọ Tinubu mélòó lórí tó ń jẹyà. Ọmọ ẹ̀ tó jóbìnrin ó mọ̀ ní yọjà, kò sí wá mẹ́mi, àbí kó wá mú ìyá yìí, àbí kó wá mẹ́yìn, kẹ́kẹ́ á lọ sí báyìí. Kò lè mú yín náà, àwa la máa jagun fúnra wa, bẹ́ẹ̀ kò tí ì yá. Ó dijọ́ tó bá bí ọmọ tó fẹ́ jagun fún Nàìjíríà, ìbọn bíbọn tó mú kúrò níwáyé, jọ́ tí Nàìjíríà bá máa lójútùú, a máa rí náà ni.
Ó kì í sọ pé kọ́ máa kó ráìsì wọlé, kàn jọ kàn bá ṣí bọ́dà, ráìsì kan jíjẹ ni, kì í ṣe poison, àbójẹ́gẹ́ bí gbó, àbójẹ́gẹ́ bí tramọ́. Oúnjẹ tá à ń jẹ sẹ́nu ara wa, wáì tí gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì ṣe lè sọ wípé yes kò gbọdọ̀ wọlé sínú Nàìjíríà. Kàn fi ráìsì nílẹ̀ fún wa ká máa jẹun lọ ká wà ókè. Ìbílẹ̀ alápò ráìsì wọn owó expenses tó ń ná láti ọ̀hún yẹn. Dé ìbàdàn ráìsì fi wọ́n náà, kò ẹ́ ráìsì wọn tó yẹ kó ṣe wọ́n yìí.
There isn't anything like a social contract between Nigerians and the government. Typically in countries, people hold their government dear to heart based on the assumption that the government will take care of me if I do what I have to do. An invisible contract that we all signed into when we were born. But that doesn't exist in Nigeria. We don't gain anything from the government, and in most cases, they gain a lot from us.
Pause. Have you signed your invisible contract with us? Please hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel, let us gain something from you at least. Now, let's get back into the show.
The minimum wage being 70K is quite outrageous. I think for just basic necessities, a Nigerian would need like 100K per month. And the fact that the minimum wage is below that is a national emergency.
Usually, the minimum wage should reflect the cost of living. If we're in a situation where foodstuffs were cheaper, or maybe if people didn't have to buy fuel and then it was constant electricity, 77K, it will be okay.
Security don't say security, ẹlòmíì gba 30, oní 25 wà, oní 40 wà, oní 50 wà. Ọ̀yà lóṣù kóṣù tó parí, ṣé security tó ń ṣe security tí kò jẹ gbèsè, kò ní róúnjẹ, kò ní yàwó ní. Tóṣù bá parí bóyá 10,000 ló kù tó máa kàn.
In Nigeria today, the cost of living does not feel like the reality of the incomes we have. How much does food cost? How much does transportation cost? The government has a huge hand in making transportation very expensive.
You can always tell that there is a grave lack of planning. It upsets me at every junction when somebody comes to ask for money from the driver.
Because why should a bus moving from Ajah to Balende be paying multiple taxes in the morning after buying such expensive fuel, of which that risk of business is going to be passed to the passengers who are earning 70,000 naira as minimum wage?
In 2023, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came on board, the first thing he did on May 29, 2023 was to remove subsidy. And I think that was the worst mistake he actually did.
Fuel subsidy is gone was as wrong can be. That statement had no business in the speech of any president. Talk little of a Nigerian president at a time when we were suffering that measure of economic hardship. I bet the president did not realize how powerful words can be. Maybe he was testing the mic.
Epo, òun ọgọ́ ló ń dá wàhálà ńlẹ̀ sí Nàìjíríà. Tí epo bá ti lè wálẹ̀, everything tó wà Nàìjíríà máa dùn. Bóyá sọ pé kan wọ́n kí náà everybody fẹ́ parọ́ mọ́, epo náà fẹ́ parọ́ mọ́. Àwọn náírà àbókí tó ń pọ́nìṣì bàtà, èló là ń pọ́nìṣì bàtà tẹ́lẹ̀ 50 naira. Ìkan wọ́n di 100 naira, ìkan wọ́n di 200 naira náà pọ́nìṣì ń sìn, àwọn ní pé kan wọ́n. Ṣé dísù náà fi ra epo àbí gbogbo ẹ̀bọ̀? Àwa gan àyàngán fún àwa gan tún papọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ ara wa Nàìjíríà.
Every time I buy fuel, it pains me. I've been buying fuel at this new cost for 2 years. I cannot imagine myself getting used to it.
Is it in the putting money? Subsidy ko, yeah, ìgbàwo Jonathan ko ni. Kó ti ń wọ́n látàyè àwọn bàbá ewúrẹ́ pé yẹn ẹ̀fìyẹ́lẹ̀ ìyẹn ti wọ́n àti pẹ́.
To be honest, I am not too knowledgeable when it comes to fuel subsidy because my parents buy fuel, my older brother buys fuel. The fact they are complaining directly also affects me, affects the thing we do in the house. I can't on my AC for too long. It affects everything. So please do something about it.
Removing subsidy was necessary. There's no argument there. Removing all subsidies are necessary. But the implementation was horrible. You don't take that away from them in such a crass manner. It has to be staggered, maybe 10% every year. If you are removing subsidies, there has to be an alternative. But that wasn't created.
I've had opportunities to be, work in the oil industry in the past, and I see the deep level of corruption. It's not just the oil industry, it's a general thing in the Nigerian system. Subsidizing petrol or diesel or whatever it was, was not profiting us, not because it was not supposed to profit us, but we're going about it the wrong way.
Every government always faces subsidy issues, but as a wise person in which people actually thought he was, or probably he still is, he ought not to have announced the removal of subsidy at that time. It was a point in Nigeria's history that we were expecting a change, but not a radical change that actually prompted negativity in return.
We export crude oil to bring in refined petroleum. Does it make sense? Advising us to use CNG in our cars. Can you really trust Nigerian customization to CNG? Okay, if it was working, why don't they have CNG vehicles in their convoys? This is wickedness.
If I were president, I would have simply created some sort of initiative, a food basket of sorts, right? A safety net whereby you are able to come claim a sum of money every month to keep you going till maybe your head is afloat, or really not make you feel the difference in how these things work.
Why could we not have, first of all, made the refineries work, done some things in the public transport system to make transportation easier, maybe cut some of these taxes that these road transport workers have to pay, or even channel the money from this subsidy removal into something else? You don't just pull out subsidy and hope that they can adapt like they always do.
Nǹkan tó lè bá wa ṣe náà ju wípé kí Tinubu tó bá lè lọ sí àárín ọ́fíìsì wọn tó ti máa ṣe mítì tó ń ṣe tó bá lè bá wa sọ nínú inú tùbí kọ́nà yẹ kí wọ́n lè bá wa gbà bẹ́ẹ̀. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ẹ bá Nàìjíríà sọ̀rọ̀ tó bá lè ṣe kíní fún wa képo yẹn kó wálẹ̀. Nídìí wàhálà mọ́ Nàìjíríà yìí.
The government of Nigeria has failed me on many fronts. Not just from criminal elements, but even from the law enforcement people themselves, especially the Nigerian police. June 2023, my immediate younger brother got picked up by the Nigerian police anti-robbery squad in Akwa Ibom State. Picked him up with 2 other friends.
In the year 2023, I and a couple of colleagues of mine embarked on a trip for a conference somewhere in Oyo State. And while we were coming back from there, we were actually stopped by police.
On the way, released the 2 friends, continued carrying my brother around town for about 4 hours. Checked his account, saw 18,000 naira. Demanded he should give them 150,000 naira and be released, even when they did not see up to that amount in his account.
While I was closing from work, one of my assistants called me and told me that one of my staff had been whisked away from site. No explanation as to who arrested him. They were not in uniform. They were not in any official vehicle. I spent the rest of the evening till the very next morning calling everybody I knew in law enforcement in Lagos.
Question where you're coming from, where you're going to. We told them, spoke to them politely as a young Nigerian. And the next thing we heard was, we are lying, we are not students. We literally have our ID card. You can see whatever we've shown you as a means of identification. And the next thing, I just heard this clock of a gun. I'm like, are you for real right now? Like, I've not said anything much.
Managed to find a way to escape. They took his phone, but we had to make calls to some people, and then the phone was released. But they had already taken 10,000 naira from him. This was done in broad daylight. This was done with boldness. This is as a result of the failure of Nigerian government to me, to my family.
In 2017, I dyed my hair blonde, and for like 3 years, I was a blondie. That was my style, that was my vibe, that was my identity. Every time I went out, it's either stop and search or harassment or something, and I was always afraid.
Eventually, I called a senior police officer in Abuja, and after explaining to him, what I was told, he told me, that looks like the modus operandi of the EFCC. I walked over to EFCC office in Ikoyi. At first, they said they did not have any persons like that. But eventually, when I insisted, they admitted, they had arrested some people yesterday evening.
They'll go through my phone, they'll be checking my pictures, they'll be checking my messages, they'll be checking my bank statements. I was just a young guy who had just finished school, who was really hustling with this film piece. So I was always out late, always with expensive equipment, my camera. It was very difficult.
The long and short of it was we were able to get him released on bail. The young man basically had that stain in his heart, having been whisked away from work, being in detention for a charge the police had no evidence of.
And I felt so personally attacked by it. One day I went to Baba, I said, I beg, let me call this thing come out.
Up to now, even when I see police officers, I still have that trauma in my head.
That's not even supposed to happen. Young people are supposed to feel safe because they are seeing the police on their streets, not feel safe and have to hide their phones. I've had police van pass me before, and immediately I had to delete my bank app. That's what the Nigerian police has become, even after EndSARS.
Abeg, can you show me the flag, Abeg? Crazy thing is that this guy that you see here, I had this at the Lekki toll gate in 2020. And it was so crazy, a few days later, seeing people using this Nigerian flag to wrap dead bodies with blood and everything. That shit hit me to the core. Omo, it do me. I went into hiding, man. I remember personally, I was even gaining small momentum with my content, and I just stopped.
Nigerian governments can do better when they place the right people, them training them to be able to do the right thing and not just doing what they like and how they feel like.
If the top is right, people will be able to sit up. If we properly fund the police force, make sure that offenders within the force are dealt with. Police is not even supposed to be a force. It's supposed to be a police service. If the people that offend are properly dealt with, these things will change.
Any security in Nigeria, Allah non so wa, Allah leleda. Yeba le ni security o le lo nwole security ke. En no titi loru. Elikoja lago merin ke lo.
Now, you can't even travel by road to go and see your parents or your families because they might kidnap you. If you go by air, you probably not even get there the day you want to get there because if it is not delayed, it is one problem or another.
Ìjọba orí téèyàn ro, ṣé Tinubu ti wà ro ni. Ojoojúmọ́ kò ní aeroplane ti aerokọ́tà ń rò lókè pẹ̀lú àpilẹ́gì Nàìjíríà. Sáàmù bóyá ti tàwa, sábà wọn dé mítìnì ni. àbáwọn débẹ̀ ọlọ́run ló wo ọmọ wèrè o.
Another aspect I feel like the Nigerian government has not helped Nigerians is through the health sector. You have an injury or an issue that seems like it's a normal fix, either because the health infrastructure isn't there or because there aren't the right skilled people available, then a regular issue becomes a bigger issue.
It was 3 years ago when my dad passed. I think he had a stroke one evening along the road, and there's a high chance he could have survived, or at least had a better chance of surviving if we had anything close to emergency services. My mom, with the help of her friend, had to, in tears, drive like a maniac in traffic from the shop to like 3 different hospitals to get him treatment, and he kind of died like in between all of that. So whenever I think about that, it kind of really pisses me off.
I had a personal experience a few years ago where I got hit by a car in traffic. And I remember a last mile official came to me and he was pulling my leg, trying to straighten it. And somebody just said, do you want to spoil the leg? You don't even know what happened to the guy's leg and you're trying to straighten it. Thank God for a good Samaritan who took me away, and I eventually got to the hospital. Thankfully, I had HMO, so that was what I used to sort it out. And I know what that could have become if I didn't have.
The healthcare system in Nigeria is looking like more of a privilege than a fundamental human right. Looking at the rural communities, the primary healthcare systems, they are underfunded and they are often underlooked. Take an example like a local farmer. His wife was about to give birth, but he lived far from a hospital. He called his relatives, he called people to help him take his wife to the hospital, but she died bleeding because time had gone. And what was he told by the local government? He was told to pray that this thing happened for a reason. It happened because there weren't adequate systems to help him export his wife to the hospital. One
of the things that the Nigerian government can do is incentivize the skilled practitioners to stay. I had a very interesting chat with the orthopedic surgeon who helped my case that day. He only comes around on Tuesdays. And he says, he shuttles around different hospitals, and that's the specific day that he would come to my hospital. There's a shortage in people as skilled as him, because when you get to that level of skill, you get a job in the UK, you get a job in the US, you get a job in Qatar. But he just says like, if I leave these people, who's going to be there to take care of them? And that's his own personal mindset. Nigeria does not lack when it comes to talent or hardworking people or skilled people. We just have to find a way to make them want to stay here. We need to make sure that the staff are being compensated and paid well. We also need to make sure that we are funding the general hospitals more.
Better local government healthcare systems, because it's easy to say grand stuff like better infrastructure, because health is only important when you can meet everybody at the lowest points, right? And that's local government, so yeah. Over
3,600 doctors in the past 3 years in Nigeria have migrated to other countries. Not because they don't love Nigeria, but because Nigeria hasn't given them enough reasons to stay. Imagine hearing that you could live a better life in another country and all you had to do was just go through a process to leave. Wouldn't you leave?
Talent will always go where it is needed. It's a shame that despite 6 decades of our self-rule, I don't know whether to call that independence, still want to fashion a society that is built for the elderly and for the privileged.
People are leaving Nigeria because they don't think there's any hope for them to do anything in Nigeria, and they want to maximize their chances elsewhere.
Myself and people who are within my age grade who have become professionals in their field, a lot of them have left. And with them has gone a lot of immense talent. Those of us who stay back still stay back. Somehow, somewhere in our hearts, we believe this nation can work.
The only real way for the government to do anything about it, I wouldn't say is to make it less attractive to leave. That would be more like a punishment. I would say they should make it senseless to want to leave, because everybody at the end of the day bears some connection to this country. We don't really want to leave as our first choice.
My heart breaks for the young people in this nation because there seems to be no hope for them.
The country is failing the youth every day. The whole educational system needs to be reviewed, because that's where they are failing us from. There's nothing linking our educational system to our value system, to our traditions. They have been teaching us the same thing since Lord Lugard amalgamated this country.
So I took the UTME exam this year. It's actually my second time, because the first time I took the exam, which was last year, 2024, I got 298. I also tried writing the post-UTME exam, and I had a lot of technical issues while writing that exam. I went to the university. I told them what happened. They rescheduled me, but I was not told when that date was going to be. I was not told where I was going to write it. I just came back from school one day and saw in my email that I was scheduled for an exam in the morning, and I could not write it again. I wrote another email asking for an appeal to be able to write this exam. I never got a response.
Education-wise, we've gone past the stage of Mansa Musa. It is not just facilities, it's not just educational facilities that we need right now. We need a revolution in our educational system.
Education leads to better quality of life for everyone, right? You want more qualified doctors, you want more qualified engineers, you really just want more qualified people all around because it helps you even as an individual.
This year, I wrote the exam in April. I was hoping and praying. I spent countless sleepless nights trying my best because of how passionate I am about the course I want to study. And when I saw my results, I saw 169 in the UTME exam. It came as a shock. Something was wrong. I went on social media and people were making a jest of it, saying that that's the score I got as long as it's there. Students just like me having the same issue, and I was like, where is this coming from? Finally, a solution was made, but it took a lot of protests. Is this the way it always has to be? I heard the story of a young girl who committed suicide over this. Let us look at this problem from the people who are organizing it.
After you've worked on the syllabus, then work on the facilities. After you've worked on the facilities, then work on the set of people that will be giving the proper education to the students. All these things combined, if they are not done, we won't move forward in Nigeria when it comes to our education.
The Nigerian secondary schools, the final exam in SS3 is the WAEC exam. And I feel like that exam should be enough for students to use to go into tertiary institutions. There is really no use of the other two exams, which is UTME, then post-UTME, given the number of applicants, given the whole stress, given the money that is put into it.
When I was trying to get admission to uni, to my greatest surprise, I got admission to a school that did not have lights for the past 4 years of my stay in that school. It was very hard to wrap my head around the fact that there are schools in Nigeria that do not have power supply and nobody is talking about it.
The problem of electricity. Personally, as a student, there are some nights when there is no light in the hostel and you can have like an exam the next day and you're expected to revise and do things. Sometimes in the hostel, if there is no light, there is no water. As a student, you're supposed to be focusing on your studies, focusing on your passions. But as a Nigerian student, most of the time, you also have to focus on your survival.
Up NEPA. It's a common phrase in Nigeria. It breaks my heart, really, that as much as the years have come by and we have hoped that one day, that statement will be in the archives. The problem of our power sector is simple corruption.
I mean, we're in Nigeria, 5,000 megawatts for over 200 million people. When their mates, South Africa, for instance, is doing 50,000 megawatts for 60 million people. The other time they threatened that they want to ban generator importation, but in their budget, they have it that spending billions on diesel. They don't even have trust in their own electricity system, but they want us to cope with it.
It's rather a shame that in this time and age, we are still battling between sometimes 3,500 megawatts. And I heard sometime yesterday, we are struggling to edge towards 5,000 megawatts. That's abysmal.
Ọ̀rọ̀ ńlá lélẹ́yìí o. Nǹkan tó fà tá a fi lè fi níná, ẹ má kí n pa fún yín. Lórí àwọn tó ń ta mẹ̀kánò, generator, lórí àwọn tó ń ta solar machine wọ̀nyí. Àwọn gan-an nífẹ̀ẹ́ gbà káwọn náà máa ṣe business wọn. Torí pé wọ́n mọ̀ tó bá le, àwọn ayé ara mẹ̀kánò sínú ilé.
Even if we were to solve electricity problem, if we don't have a government that is very intentional and has foresight to plan, we don't mind you even coming back for second term. As long as there is a detailed plan, people just wake up one morning and they just announce like, oh, this is what we're going to do. I mean, we should celebrate that. Okay, this year we've not really had a number of grid collapses, but last year was very terrible.
Power generation is as easy as ABC. The biggest gold mine we have is gas. Power generation through gas-powered turbines is one of the easiest things we can do. We are a gas nation.
We can look at things like incorporating solar energy more and also looking at the hydro dam in the country.
Nigeria is like a house where you have poor wiring and you used to use I better pass my neighbor kind of generator. And then all of a sudden you want to upgrade to using 10 ACs in your house, 10 plasma TVs, and then you go up and you want to transmit from a 50 kVA generator on the same poor wiring. It's not going to work. Our transmission infrastructure is poor and dilapidated.
Gbogbo àwọn kinní wọ̀nyẹn tó bá lè bá reduce ẹ̀ pé yes kí jẹ́ gbogbo àwọn kinní ẹ̀ kó máa wá kọ́ra máa kó wá sí Nàìjíríà kó máa lè dàbí ti tẹ́lẹ̀ mọ́ máa dá ewúro rice tá a jẹ́ ń sìn ẹ̀ bọ́n ṣe gbógun lé rice wọ́n ṣe wá lè wá gbógun lé mẹ̀kánò pé yes kó máa gbé mẹ̀kánò wọlé wá mọ́ kó bá àwọn kan ṣe sórí ìyẹn náà.
The way we are going about it is wrong. The government cannot continue to maintain a large chunk of ownership in power transmission. The TCN is largely owned by the government. It's not working. We need to break this whole thing up. Government needs to step back and allow for private investment into this sector.
There's no lights. Rent is super expensive. Imagine earning 150k at your work and then your house rent is almost over 1 million. Like, how do you want to cope?
The housing crisis in Lagos, greed is the main problem. An agent sees a property that is going for a certain amount, calls funny amount as agency fees, calls funny amount as commission, calls funny amount as legals.
We don't know when ourselves house cost for Lagos, especially if you're living on the island. Landlords like to do anyhow. In the apartment where I'm in right now, the landlord just woke up one day and said he wanted to increase the rent. The law says that you have to give the tenant 6 months notice. But that was after less than a year that he had already increased it. And you can't do that multiple times. And you cannot complain to the government or anything. You have to decide whether you want to fight it or you want to just survive. Battling against someone or people that have more means than you and I can probably afford to drag it out for years. And at the end of the day, like, where are you going to lay your head at night?
Ẹ wo bí inú àdúgbò táwa náà ń gbé yín sìn. Ẹ lè rí ilé pé bí ẹ fẹ́ lọ rent a room self kan. Ilé ńlá ni. Bẹ́ẹ̀ bá tún máa rí room gan, ọmọ tí wàá lọ jẹ́ ilé pákó, orí ilẹ̀ onílẹ̀. Tó bá máa ti dọ̀la, wọ́n lè ní pé bí Tinubu ló nílẹ̀ kan, àbí Fáṣọlá kan ló nílẹ̀ kan, ti fẹ́ lò. Wọ́n máa tún dá àwọn everybody wọn so God.
There is no plan by the government. When government fails to play its role, you leave the atmosphere open for any and everybody to determine what happens, the way it happens, how it happens, for themselves. You create a regulationless environment.
There's lack of foresight in this country. You know that you have a young population. At some point, they are going to need their personal space. You should have thought about it in the number, say 5 years. This is what this group of people will need, and then you provide it.
I would say real estate is becoming a lucrative business in Lagos, but not in the right way. There ought to be a regulation. Putting a regulation on landlord and even agents. It's even crazy that some landlord will tell you to come and pay 2 years ahead. Why?
First thing is we need to have a government that should be able to come in and realize that where you have the housing sector problem is at the lower rung of the economy. Enough of building high-rise buildings in Ikoyi, which majorly are still, funded by private businesses. They are profit-driven. Government exists to be able to bridge the gap between the poor and the rich.
Irú àdúgbò tá a wá kì í ṣe gbogbo fún big man kọ̀ọ̀kan ló yẹ kó máa wà ń bẹ̀. Ọ̀tún pé àwọn big man tó wà ń bẹ̀ àwọn tálíkà ló ṣàṣìṣẹ́ fún wọn. Gbogbo ẹ̀ wọnú ara wọn ni ẹ ká máa gbé yẹ̀ wò. Ó yẹ káwọn apáti mi wà tó yẹ pé yes àwọn tó yẹ pé ó tún ṣiṣẹ́ nínú àdúgbò yẹn. Tó pé àwọn gan tún lè ráyè máa wà tó máa manage ara wọn. Ṣèbí inú ẹ́sìtì la pé kò lè sí issue, kò lè sí jà, kò ní sí pé bóyá ẹ̀rín lọ́tún ẹ̀rí ẹnìkan tó ta nẹ́ẹ̀tì tó ń sùn sí abẹ́ nẹ́ẹ̀tì àbẹ́ ẹ̀rí ẹnìkan tó kan pákó ló ń gbélé pákó kò yẹ kí rẹ̀ wá mi báyìí.
If government can build houses, provide credit systems, at least for people with secure jobs and businesses to have accommodation where they can pay over a period of time to help.
If they know that there are consequences for acting out, just increasing rent or not giving the service that you've already agreed to in the contract, maybe there'll be easier ways to go about it.
But I'll just say I'll digitize a number of processes from how you rent. In as much as, this is a business, you also want a situation where there is a fair process.
We've had people in the past, governments in the past. Lateef Jakonde, look at the housing plan he pursued. We had a rising middle class that needed to be housed. And so he started pushing his housing policies to be able to fill in those gaps. If we had continued on this Festac 79 path, I'm sure that by now we would have had a lot of Festac 79 projects replicated in many major city capitals, in Nigeria.
If the president was in this room with me, I would tell him that the youths are not the leaders of tomorrow. They are the solutions for today.
Sir, you've not done well. First, you remove subsidy. I'll keep talking about the subsidy. The subsidy was the first downfall of President Tinubu. And that mistake you made was Student Loan Act. Some people don't even know the meaning of Student Loan Act. Some set of students can't access it.
And a realistic wage. You do not have to move with 70 cars. You do not have to have 1,400 MDAs
Tinubu, you have been a bad boy. I don't even know. I don't have words for him because they all know what they are doing.
Nigerians, they are not happy. Basic amenities are like luxury. Now people are selling things that Nigerians cannot afford with the guise of "you're not my target audience." And people are merging different job roles, distinct job roles.
The youth have so much untapped potential. And if we want to build Nigeria to a country that we can be proud of, we need to look at the human capital first.
He's doing things based on what he wants and not what people want. So I'm going to tell him that he should prioritize the citizens.
My simple words will be cut to the politics. This is the time where we need to save this nation. If you continue on this part of politics, I'm sorry, you may get your own win today, but you lose out in tomorrow.
Báyìí Tinubu báyìí kó lóòótọ́ ló wà nílé ilé mi fẹ́ dọ̀bálẹ̀ síwájú mi fẹ́ bẹ̀ nípa ọ̀rọ̀ Nàìjíríà ni. Kán jọ kó má borúkọ ẹ̀ jẹ́. Ìkan tó bá lè ṣe sí ọ̀rọ̀ Nàìjíríà kóun náà gbégbésẹ̀ rẹ̀ sí. Tókù tó bá sọ lọ tó bá sọ bọ̀ Tinubu ni. Ó lè má délẹ̀ tán o, kó yà ṣe díẹ̀ nú ẹ̀, àwọn èèyàn máa mọ̀ pé yẹ̀sán wọ́n ṣe.
What is really in my heart, what's really in my mind, I'll tell him to resign. But on a productive basis, I would encourage him to allow the youth have power. When I was born, the people that were in power are still the people that are in power right now. I'm almost 30. For you to have a revolution, you need to have ginger. And the people that have the most ginger are the young people. Will it be crazy for you to have a president that's 40 or 50? Look at what Traore is doing in Burkina Faso.
The younger population are about, say, 70%. If this population is not educated in a way that imposes them as an advantage, then it's just like we're breeding a ticking time bomb. Please focus on education for this population. We are all going to be here for the repercussion, and it's not going to be a positive one from the look of things.
So I think the first step is for the president to admit that there's a problem. It might be a reach, but I think a second good step is for governance to take a very transparent view. If it's possible for them to tell every single person what has been wrong for the past 60 years, not telling me basic stuff like, oh, it's corruption, oh, it's this. No. Tell me what happens and tell me what you want to do about it.
Make things work. Feel like you're spending your money, your hard-earned money, not money you got from political jackpots. Because if you make your money, you will not budget 260 million for street lights. You will not be buying SUVs for 160 billion per year. You will not reward 4% progress. Feel like this country is your own. People are legit suffering, and it does not make sense that we're living like this with so much wealth in this country.
Wear your shokoto, wear your short knicker, go outside and see what's happening on the roads, not from your tower and you're looking down.
Kí gbogbo nǹkan wálẹ̀ tìbí oṣù tó ń bá àbújọ wọn máa kàmpéènì sí. Ó yá tó bá ṣe dáadáa, ta ló fẹ́ tẹ̀lé? Ẹ jẹ́ kí Nàìjíríà ò dáa, torí àwọn ọmọ tó ń bọ̀ lọ́la.
If I, Omotola Olude Molly, became the president, the first thing I'm going to do is tackle insecurity. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to draw every able man on the road doing nothing and put them into the Nigerian army. They should go and tackle the insecurity that is going on in Enugu and in the north. They won't be causing nuisance. They would have food, they'll have shelter, they'll have something they are doing basically, and probably die for their country.
If I become the president of Nigeria, the first thing I'm going to do is to sack everybody in power. We need new blood, we need fresh blood, we need new mindset. Recruit more people that are capable of doing their job.
The first thing I'll do is to change the constitution. The constitution is too lopsided, for a nation like ours to be able to forge ahead with such a document. We cannot have a constitution that grants the president the power to appoint who becomes the head of the only election organizing body in the country. He cannot appoint the chief judge. These should be professional organizations where people who have been enlisted or recruited by merit, rise through the ranks.
I have this bias because I'm feminist, so I'll just have to reform a number of policies that limit women.
Deciding to divert most of funding towards healthcare and education. Better, healthier people, smarter, healthier people, build better countries.
The president said tí mo rí pé mo ti jìyà gan máa yẹ kó pa fún àwọn olówó yẹn tán ti lówó yẹn mi ò lè rí tí wọ́n rò àwọn tá a jọ ń sọ́fà tá a rí àwọn ẹlòmíì tó ń sọ abẹ́ bíríìjì tẹ́lómi fẹsẹ̀ rìn káàkiri tẹ́lómi àkiri pé ọ̀tá kiri gbogbo oríṣiríṣi àwọn ẹ̀gọ́ lèmi fẹ́ lọ fókọ̀sì lé lórí láti lè jẹ́ káwọn náà jẹ́ èèyàn ẹni tó bá fẹ́ kàwé kó kàwé ẹni tó bá fẹ́ lọ kọ́ṣẹ́ kó kọ́ṣẹ́.
Removing the policies that has to do with double taxation for customers and citizens.
I would take a close look at the education system in the country. I would call for a national evaluation of the curriculum I would make sure that as a 21st century nation, we are not learning with the 19th century curriculum. The curriculum is going to include things like tech and just real life problem solving skills that the youths, after graduating, they can use it and become creators and innovators in their own space.
Ẹ wo rújà kàn dín mẹ́rin sí náà, ẹ máa wúni lódò ọ̀pọ̀ yẹn máa ti rí àwọn kéékèèké wọ̀nyí tí wọ́n máa lé mọ́tò mú káàkiri, àìrí kan ṣe sí. Bọ̀ tí bá pé ibi tí ìjọba ti wù àbí tó yẹ kán ṣiṣẹ́ sí wọn ní iṣẹ́ síbẹ̀, irú àwọn ọmọ yẹn kankan máa lọ bọ́ sọ̀pọ̀ yẹn kán lọ máa dà wọ́n láàmú kán máa mú wọn máa kọ́ṣẹ́ by force. Iṣẹ́ wọn máa kọ́ ẹni tó bá yẹ pé ó kọ́ṣẹ́ tó mọ̀ kó fẹ́ ṣe freedom fẹ́ ṣe kíní kan ìjọba máa help ẹ̀. Ẹ kàn máa ń ṣe fún Nàìjíríà máa dùn. Kì í ṣe pé kọ́kọ́ dédé lọ bẹ̀ wọ́n fẹ́ lọ kọ́ àwọn ẹ̀fẹ́ lọ tì wọ́n mọ́lé wọ́n fẹ́ lọ ṣèkà fún irọ́ yẹn kọ́ ni possible. Ọmọ tó bá fẹ́ ṣiṣẹ́ ni wọ́n máa mọ̀ pé lè gangan ẹ̀ràn ìyá ni ẹ ò sí lẹ́ni tó yẹ kó gbé Nàìjíríà inú wọn ni tó máa fi rú wọn pamọ́ sí kó lọ wà ń bẹ̀.
Whoever is president, or if I was president, I would want to create a better, stronger, broader safety net for everyone, whereby people don't have to worry that hunger and starvation is the result of taking risks. We are here for you. The government is here for you.
It was important for me to come out today to just say how I feel about everything. Give a voice to the millions of Nigerians who are also in this situation with me.
The day I realized that as educated and as experienced as I am, I only have one vote. And then I realized that if I continue to have more people who do not understand the theatrics of electioning, of politics, of economy, of the healthcare sector, housing, and how it plays into the life of the average Nigerian, the more disadvantaged someone like me will continue to be.
It's very important for me to speak on this topic today because I do not want to just be a Twitter warrior. I actually want to take a step forward and try and do something about it, the little way I can.
To be very honest with you, I have lived a comfortable life in Nigeria. I have always been shielded by my parents. But after what recently happened with the UTME exam, I got a little bit of the reality of what the country is like.
Tó bá yẹ pé bí ọ̀rọ̀ mi lẹ pè mí fún ni, mi ò ní wá. Ìgbà tí mo rí pọ̀rọ̀ Nàìjíríà ni tó ṣe kókó sí wa, wáyé tí mi ṣe ní wá. Gbogbo mi ṣe wáyé sí náà, èmi náà ní di help. Tí bá ríyàn tó yẹ kó máa ra truck fẹ́mi náà kémi náà bẹ̀rẹ̀ iṣẹ́ tó pé travel driver ní mí. Kó má bàdà pé yàn lọ máa fi jòkó lójú kan lẹ́ ló máa ń jòkó.
Fellow Nigerians, very interestingly, I would say the people in power are not our problems. We are our problems. If you randomly pick another 1,000 Nigerians and flush out 1,000 in government, I promise you get a very similar result to what we're having now. If we can properly train the next generation, I promise you, we have a chance at a better future.
Hope comes from a belief that is backed by actions. If we want this country to change, then we must all start acting in the direction of the change we want to see. All these do not know tribe, do not know skin color, do not know religion. Another election year is coming. We need to start asking the right questions now.
Ẹ̀bẹ̀ náà ni ká mọ̀ bẹ̀ fún Nàìjíríà kó lọ́n tún Nàìjíríà sí. Ká mọ̀ rogun mọ́. Ẹ̀wọ̀n nǹkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní joint sans ẹ̀wọ̀n tán pàṣárà. Ká mọ̀ rogun mọ́ ni. Kò sẹ́ni tó máa rogun tínú ẹ̀ máa dùn. Ẹ jẹ́ ká fi ra wa lọ́kàn balẹ̀. Nàìjíríà ti ń bọ̀ wá dẹ́rọ̀.
Keep doing what you are doing, keep fighting, keep staying strong because I know for a fact that one day we are going to be great again.
Tí ìjọba ò bá help, ara wa náà ti lè help ara wa tẹ́ pé ìjọba yẹn gan-an. Àwọn kan tó máa pọ̀ máa wá wọn tẹ́ pọ̀ ń ṣe gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì àwọn gan fún àwọn tí wọ́n á ṣe kò tó yẹ kí gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì ṣe. Ọlọ́run á dẹ̀ fún wa lógún ìjà níṣe lásán.
I just want to appeal to our leaders, starting from Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to state governors, to ministers. Please and please, it is not just your pocket you need to be fighting for. It is not just your generational worth you need to be fighting for. There are a lot of people in pain out there, and trust me, if you don't do the right thing now, they'll come back and haunt you. So please, let's just do better.
I'm a proud Nigerian and long live Nigeria.